Everyone has a fear that keeps them up at night, spiders or the dark. But for Javon Hargrave, it's failure. And he's come much closer to it than he ever wanted to. Welcome to the Everyman series on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a fiberglass factory near Salisbury, North Carolina, around 2013, there's a new hire. He's 18 years old. He's fresh out of high school. His clothes are covered in fiberglass bits, and he hates every second of it. It's not that there's an innate indignity to working in a factory. Plenty of people do. It's that his very presence here means that he failed. Welcome to the Everyman series on the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. Today, we are continuing with the Everyman series. It's Javon Hargrave. Today, we're going to talk about everything from him as a young tyke, running around, eating Bojangles, all the way up through his time in San Francisco and Philadelphia before that and so on. Before we get into that, there are a couple of quick notes that are worth mentioning that are in the news category. Over the weekend, on Friday, so since we last talked, since it happened like the hour that the Friday episode went up, Kwesi got his contract extension, finally. As I've been predicting all offseason, it happened with very little drama around it. It just was one day you're going to see the headline, and that's going to be the end of that. So there we go. Hope nobody was insane about it. The other thing to mention is that it is June 2nd. And that means that a lot of contract stuff is different. Any trades that happen right now, prorate, just like a post-June 1st cut would be. Any cap cut things that would happen from here on out would work as though they are post-June. And any post-June designated cuts from last year, those cap savings now apply to those teams. So a lot of like cap situations are going to turn different between the time I'm recording this podcast and the time you're listening to it. So nationally, that means we're like very much on Kirk Cousins' watch now. His contract gets a little bit different, like other quarterback trade stuff. Jalen Ramsey could be one. There's a lot of those situations where you're like, yeah, it makes sense, but it can't really happen until June because of the contract. Well, here we are. So something to watch. There's nothing in particular that I'm looking at for the Vikings right now, but if something happens now, that's why it happened now and not last week. And if that happens, we'll get to it next time we can. For now, let's focus on the Everyman series. Javon Hargrave grew up near Salisbury, North Carolina. It's actually East Spencer, but he went to North Rowan High School, which is in Salisbury. He's kind of like right on the border of those two towns. You got to realize we're talking about a nose tackle, which means big kid likes to eat is like the motif of so many of these stories and articles that have sourced this one. By the way, the primary source for this one is an Athletic article from a couple of years ago when he was in Philadelphia. And I'll link that in the show notes. But what's funny is that his favorite game as a kid, as a big old kid, is hide and seek. Hide the big man. He was raised by his grandmother primarily and a local pastor named Timothy Bates. He refers to Timothy Bates as his dad. And he liked to be a basketball player more than a football player growing up. And he had like NBA dreams. He grew up watching and loving Kobe Bryant all the time. And he still even has like a big Mamba mentality like motif. Every time he would go into a game, he would post a picture of Kobe, which would be both of like I've got the Mamba mentality thing and also just a, hey, I'm not going to be online for a while because I'm locked in. I'm, Mamba mentality. So basketball was big. And it's so funny. They were like, yeah, one of his high school coaches was like, yeah, he was the kind of basketball player as a kid that could like quietly put up 20 and 10. Like, what do you mean quietly 20 and 10? What? But I guess that's the kind of player that he was. There's not ever really been a lot of flash around Javon Hargrave. He's never really been like the look at me kind of guy. And I think if you're going to be a nose tackle for most of your playing days, that's probably the like has to be the case. Nose tackles take a lot of punishment and get very little of the thank. And they do like physically might be the most punishing job because they're the ones getting double teamed the most often by far. And they don't really, you don't get the nose tackle sacks a lot. Not nearly as much as you get from, your Fletcher Cox or Cameron Hayward for a couple of teammates that Javon Hargrave will have down the road. But that doesn't really stop people from celebrating Javon Hargrave. So as it goes, he's headed into high school and his parents are like, you should play football. You're huge. So he is, apparently it takes a little bit of coaxing, but they eventually talk him into it. But he doesn't join for the summer workouts. He joins in the fall. So he's on JV, right? Like, hey, okay, welcome to the team. You got to learn everything. We're not going to stick you right on varsity. You weren't here all summer. So he's on JV, first game of JV. He gets in and he just like blows past some poor kid, like some poor, freshman that's like not even fully like just learned how to do a stance 3 months ago. And here's Javon freaking Hargrave, future NFL, top 100 pick. And by the way, he's already like 260 and he's just like destroying. By the way, he's quicker than you. Good luck. So after that game, all the JV coaches are looking at each other like, yeah, okay, this guy's done here, I think. Like we're going to go to varsity now. So he's going to play varsity for the rest of high school. He earns the name Gravedigger. Hargrave, get it? And that nickname will sort of follow him. They'll start calling him some other stuff in the pros, but Gravedigger still his Instagram handle and stuff, and that's probably the nickname that is most often associated with him. So he is, a superstar in high school. Everything's going great in high school, but we've got a grades issue. This comes up a lot in this series. There's a lot of players that are really good at football, don't take the classroom seriously, and then suddenly they've got a 1.2 GPA and no college wants them, and they're like, oh my God, what do I do, right? It happens to plenty of players, even players that we understand to be like really smart about football, and Javon Hargrave is a great example of how your grades aren't always necessarily about your attitude or your intelligence, but rather sometimes school just doesn't agree with people and the format of school just doesn't agree with people. I could go back and tell you stories like the story of Mekhi Blackman or the story of Justin Jefferson, how academics really sandbagged their careers before they, became the players that they are. And somebody like Jefferson in particular, we know to be an incredibly smart player. And football just wasn't a priority, or school just wasn't a priority for him until it was kind of too late and it had to be. And it was this big. Listen to that old Everyman series from a few years ago when I did like everybody on the whole 90s so that we could kind of get everybody laid out because Justin Jefferson's is awesome. But for Hargrave, we got to do the eligibility dance now. And that means you're in this like mad scramble in the classroom where you're constantly tracking, okay, I'm out of this, this is my GPA. It needs to be up to here. That means I need an 83 in this class and a 72 in this class. And one of them, he ends up like less than a percentage point short of where he needs to be. And he studies really hard for a test. He gets like an 83 on that test, but he needed to get an 85, or it's like 84.3. He needed to get an 85 or something like that. And it's well within the range of, hey, teach, can I do a little bit of extra credit just to get my grade over this threshold? Because I could possibly get in a college scholarship based off this. This could be everything. I just need a little bit. And the teacher will not budge. The teacher will not give him the chance to do extra credit. I'm sorry. This is your grade. Here you go. Sorry, you didn't get your thing up. That's on you. No, like working with him at all. And it still leaves a bad taste in his mouth to think about that, because that moment, that eligibility problem, keeps him out of college. He cannot get in. As much as schools want to, I don't know if he was officially ineligible. I kind of have to imagine, because if a college can fudge it, they're going to fudge it for a good player. But that shuts the door, slams shut with a loud noise. I can't imagine how many other players this is the thing for, where they're good enough, they have the talent, the work ethic, and everything, Hargrave is not a bad student by any stretch of the imagination. His coaches, his pastor dad, are all helping him. Hey, sit in the front, ask questions, be personable. And all the teachers seem to like him. They just couldn't get this one last thing that they needed, and it won't happen. So he graduates high school, no college till he can get his grades up, which means he's going to have to take a semester off. He's going to have to work, and it's going to get really, really hard. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. If you need a job at a factory, maybe because you're in between college semesters, or if you are a hiring manager, check out LinkedIn. Of course, you have to be on LinkedIn if you're looking for a job or if you're looking for somebody to hire. 72% of small businesses report that they get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, and that's for a great reason. There's the hashtag hiring frame, the hashtag looking for work frame that you can put around your profile picture to make sure everybody knows that you're looking for work or that you're looking for hires, and help the right people get connected, and all kinds of other tools at LinkedIn that can help you write job descriptions or narrow down a giant pool of applicants. Look, when you run a small business, you are managing so many million different things. You don't have time to do the tedious and incredibly voluminous process of looking through a million job candidates. That is where LinkedIn can help you narrow things down to the right candidates for your company and your culture. So check out LinkedIn.com, and you can post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. After every high school football game, Timothy Bates would drive Javon Hargrave home from school, and 2 blocks away from the high school is a Bojangles. So after every game, he's like, hey, do you want fried chicken? And this is a nose tackle. The answer is often yes. But there was one season where North Rowan went 0-11. It's a smaller school, and not one that's going to get This is not one of those schools that's producing NFL talent over and over and over again. A few players have come from there just because it's been around a long time. But Javon Hargrave is a fairly special case, and it's not the most prestigious high school. So this is the kind of thing that can happen, and he's just super depressed about losing that much. Hargrave's biggest fear is a fear of failure, lack of success. So not being successful as a team really wore on him. And after high school, when he couldn't get into college, he feels as though he failed. And he still, to some degree, says man, if that teacher only cut me a little bit of a break and just gave me a chance to do extra credit, this all would have been fine. But it's still a little bit man, I wish I was more serious. And he still does wish he was more serious there. That's not, when you're 18, that's you're not that good at processing that kind of thing. You need to be in your 30s before you can get to there, right? Or your late 20s before you can think about it in that and you need some distance from it, right? So if you ask him now, he says, yeah, I wish I was more serious, blah, blah, blah. Got all my thoughts. But at the time, he's just sad and angry. He goes to work at this big giant warehouse on the outskirts of Salisbury, North Carolina. And he gets his clothes filled with fiberglass crap, and he goes home, and his brother talks about all he did was sit in his gray t-shirt and just stare at the walls and eat. That's all he did. He gained 40 pounds over this semester, and it wasn't good weight. This was the first time he would hit 300 in his career, and it was not the right kind of way. He would just sit there and eat and go to work and go home and nothing. And again, we know that this went differently for Hargrave, but how many kids go through exactly this and just end up working at that factory for 30 years and just kind of not really liking what they do all day? It's tragic to think about, but it's a pretty common refrain. Star athlete that doesn't think they have to care in the classroom because they're 16 and they don't know better, Anyways, after that semester, he will be eligible, but for FCS, he'll go to South Carolina State in HBCU, pretty close to home. It's a good fit, and he'll play out his college time there. Just getting the pads back on snaps him out of the funk, and he's immediately ready to get back in shape, get working out again. And the love and the joy and the smiles are all back. Again, Javon Hargrave is a very personable guy, and his community in East Spencer, Salisbury is really, really important to him. But I do think he needed to get out of that and get to a fresh new environment, not far away one, but just be in a dorm, right? Be in a new, different campus, different place, change your routine a little bit and snap out of that funk. There will be a game in South Carolina State that I want to focus on, but his coaches kind of saw this coming. They would often have to pull him from practices just because he's beating the crap out of the O-line so bad that they can't get their reps in. They're like, okay, Javon, you got to chill a little bit. We need the O-line to actually practice some because you're just crushing them and the offense can't actually get its thing to work because you're destroying them so bad. And this happens in a game to Bethune-Cookman, who was the 14th ranked FCS team that year. This is 2014. You can look up the game in the highlights. You will find 6 Javon Hargrave sacks in that game. 6 in a game. Just an absolute shellacking of a team that's pretty good for their league. And it's FCS, right? And this is where he'll go when it comes time to be a draft guy. We're talking about, small school stuff. Is he overlooked? There's only 4 teams at his pro day. But that game puts him on the map. He talks about that game, that moment changed his life. And we're not that far. We're maybe 18 months removed from sad in a fiberglass factory. And now we're going, wait, you're going to maybe be in the NFL. Maybe these guys are going to draft you. The teams are interested. As his pre-draft goes on, the anxiety ramps up. He's asked about it at the combine, and they say, he says all the right things. He says, hey, we're not, I can't control what I can't control. I'm just trying not to think about it and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes time for the draft party, the day 2 of the draft party, this is when he's supposed to go, day 2. So this is when he throws his party. They're at a bowling alley, friends, family, everybody's there. And it's an anxious environment because the second round comes and goes. No Javon Hargrave. The first 20-ish picks of the third round come and go. No Javon Hargrave. So it's coming toward the end of the night. And we still haven't heard the name we want to hear. And everybody knows the scoop, right? That this is not guaranteed. You could fall all the way out if you're unlucky, if the right team, you got 2 teams interested in you and they both decided that they liked a different D tackle better. They could do it. You're a small school guy. Anything can happen here. But then over the PA comes an announcement that with the 89th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers have selected Javon Hargrave. The whole place erupts, crying, hugging, tears. Everybody's going crazy over it. And we take a moment to take stock here that Hargrave has managed to turn that situation around through the FCS and to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Talk about a vibe shift. If there ever were a blue-blooded franchise, it's been Pittsburgh. The Ohio State of the NFL, right? Especially in, back then, that was, peak Ben Roethlisberger times, right? We're talking 2016. Oh, and by the way, he's on the dean's list when he graduates from South Carolina State. So that problem has been figured out. He looks back on this whole grades thing, and one of the main things was that he was just a really anxious test taker. There's this great anecdote in one of these articles that I'll link, the one I'll link, which is about him freaking out because he can't find his ID before the SATs, and how that whole situation, he kind of melts down even though he understands and he learns the information. It's just the format didn't work for him. But you grow, you mature, you get better. Dean's list, great GPA, great grades, and on to the pros we go. The Pittsburgh Steelers, and then later the Eagles, 49ers, and now Vikings will each bring their own challenges to him. And those challenges will forge whatever kind of player we're going to get for the Vikings, which is very much an unknown, but that might not be that big a deal. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. As a 22-year-old rookie, Javon Hargrave is not the most responsible with his body. In many such cases, but there is, when you're young, okay, when you're in your 20s, you can eat whatever you want, and you can still be, you can sleep 4 hours a night, and you can do all that. For Javon Hargrave, it's Chick-fil-A. He says, by his own admission, he was eating Chick-fil-A every day into Pittsburgh. And then he walks into the facility and he sees Cam Hayward and James Harrison. James Harrison as, the elder statesman in Pittsburgh, which he was at that time. And Cameron Hayward, who was the up-and-coming superstar of Pittsburgh at the time. And Javon Hargrave is this plucky rookie that's like got his Chick-fil-A greasy face. And he sees James Harrison take, he's getting needles and getting... doing like all this stuff to take care of himself, and the diet is super meticulous, and like all the stuff that true top of flight, like top of the world athlete needs to do to keep their body right and keep their body, able to do these feats of human strength that you see from these guys all the time. And if you were to ask him then, he would go, "Those guys are crazy. I'm not putting any needles in me. What are you talking about?" But if, you ask him now, he's taken all of those habits. We are all kind of an amalgamation of the people that we've been around, whether you want to admit it or not. Me personally, a lot of my verbal tics are just straight up lifted from my dad. Just the way he talks is the way I talk. It's just the way it is, right? But there's also some of that comes from my mom. So now I'm a mix of those things, right? My step-parents are the same way. My wife is the same way. There's so many little things that I say that really were her thing. And I didn't even realize it until I heard her brother also say it. And their whole family talks that way. And now I do too, because it's just like how language sort of leaks into each other. That's just language. That's just like the way people talk. But the habits that Javon Hargrave has some of them are from James Harrison. Some of them are from Fletcher Cox. Some of them are from playing next to Eric Armstead. That's kind of how these veterans are made when they've been through a few teams and a few different environments and a few different coaching styles. You go from Mike Tomlin to, the Nick Sirianni Eagles, and then you go to the Kyle Shanahan 49ers, and now you're here and you're on a Brian Flores defense. Like, it's all a lot of different stuff. But for Hargrave in Pittsburgh, he's a true nose, and he's a good pass rusher for a nose. That's part of what gets him drafted, but it's really, you're the thankless double team guy. Then 2020 comes around because things are unprecedented. There's not like a big party over his contract, but he signs a huge deal with the Eagles, makes a ton of money. This is the thing, right? Now he can go give back to his community, donates like 111 bicycles to his old school. And he does, it's really cute. He goes back and he'll like teach a class at his old high school, and he'll like sit in the desk with them. Cause he's like, "Look, I was one of you. I sat right here. Look what I did. You can too." Because again, at New Rowan High, it's not a thing that happens all the time. You don't have to do that when you play for De La Salle or Bishop Gorman. But at New Rowan, there's a lot of power to that. And he's a legend in Salisbury, North Carolina. You can ask anybody in Salisbury, North Carolina, who Javon Hargrave is, and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, that dude rules." Like, that's the reputation that he has. And everybody that's come across him is like, "Oh, yeah, what a nice guy." That's what everybody says. Like, "Oh, yeah, great dude. Love hanging out with that guy." When he gets to Philly, they use him a little bit differently, as he's not the sort of dirty work nose. That's going to be Fletcher Cox, who has to take on the doubles because everybody double teams him because he's so good. Okay, Javon Hargrave, you're next to him. You get the one-on-ones all day. Cook. And cook he does. He is part of one of these crazy Philly D-lines with Josh Sweat and I think Derek Barnett was still there in 2022. But I mean, this is the Super Bowl team. And again, we take a minute and we look back down this mountain that we've climbed. We're playing in the Super Bowl. You just 38-7 to the 49ers. And you 38-7 to the Giants the same year. You went 38-7, 38-7. Here we are in the Super Bowl. And you're playing well, Pro Bowl alternate. The whole thing works out great. They won't win that Super Bowl, of course, and it's a bummer. And that's the end of Javon Hargrave's contract in Philadelphia. He'll go sign with those 49ers. All his old Eagles teammates give him a ton of crap for it. Hey, we just killed those guys. What are you doing playing in San Francisco? But now it's a different one, a different job. He's back to being the kind of dirty work nose tackle. And it's a totally different set of challenges. And San Francisco has had some weird challenges, very well-documented challenges over those couple of years, some weird ill-timed skids, and, last year not going that well. Week 3 last year, he'll get hurt. He'll miss the rest of the season. And now that's the challenge, is being, 30 and having to rehab your body now through an injury. And through this is a totally different thing. He's been hurt before, but obviously missing an entire season, that sucks. So here he is in Minnesota. He's the old guy and he's injured, and what's the deal? And if you ask anybody in Minnesota media to show you their Javon Hargrave piece, it's probably going to center around that. It's going to center around what is he going to give you? That's my Javon Hargrave episode from when they signed him. Is what are you going to get out of this guy? Is he going to be, an every down player? Is he going to be part of a rotation? Is he expected to pass rush? Is he going to pass rush well? Can he take on a double? Can he still do all of those things? He's getting older. He's hurt. Is he still the same athlete? All these questions that start to swirl around you. But there is a dignity to being the veteran, where even if you get all the worst answers to those questions, and he can't stay healthy, and he plays 3 snaps a game, and he's a total bust of a free agent pickup, you can never say anything worse than you aren't the guy you used to be. And if he's not the guy he used to be, that does imply that the guy he used to be is worth celebrating, and you can never take that away from him ever again. There's a beauty to that, to being that elder statesman. There is such a quiet dignity to, we all know and respect your accomplishments. And if you want to criticize him, you have to say that first and then go, but that will always be the case for Javon Hargrave. What he has already accomplished is his story. What happens here in Minnesota is just one chapter in it, and unless the Vikings go all the way or something, it's probably not going to be the most important one. But what he has already done is a lesson out there for every FCS player to ever come in through the draft. Everybody who's had trouble getting into college because of their grades. You just got to keep your head up, have the right attitude toward it, and never freaking quit. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. And as always,